everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and it is time once again to talk about professional wrestling for a couple of hours right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or on your favorite podcast application. And if you're listening right now, well, obviously you are. Thank you very much. I appreciate it tremendously, and consider leaving a like here on YouTube, subscribing if it's your first time here, or leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Anything like those little actions are great to help grow the channel, the podcast, etc. And I would appreciate it. I'd be very, very appreciative. It's the holidays. We're getting into the holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving to all you Yanks tomorrow. Why don't you be thankful for me? Be thankful for me and leave a like. How about that? Show a bit of love here. That would be fantastic. But hey, listen, I'm going to show you all some love because we got ourselves a great show all set up, all ready to go. We're, of course, going to be reviewing AEW Full Gear 2025, presented by DC. That's going to be happening within just a couple of moments. We're also going to. I'm also going to give you my thoughts on the field for the Continental Classic 2025 that was revealed earlier this week. So we're going to talk about that. I know it's going to be starting on Dynamite in a few hours, but at least my thoughts, I'll be able to get them in before it starts. And honestly, that makes me a pro. Outside of that, well, look. It's a good show. We got a good show lined up. Just settle back and enjoy it. If you're listening to this after the turkey, allow me to drift you off to turkey sleep. When you've had too much turkey. All right. Thank you very much for being here, everyone. Let's get to it. It is now time to review AEW Full Gear presented by DC 2025 that took place on November 22nd, 2025. At the old Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. So an eventful show full of news bits, all sorts of news items to talk about, all sorts of things that are allowing emotions to bubble up to the surface, perhaps anxieties returning to center stage. There's a lot of stuff to talk about on this on this show. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So there are going to be two themes, I believe, that are going to sort of permeate throughout this review here that we're going to do. I've got two large umbrellas here. I've got the first theme essentially is going to be too much of a good thing, I guess. Too much of a good thing. And the other one is going to be everything's going to be fine. Those are my those are the two things that I think we're going to be balancing with as we move along. Because holy smokes, you'd swear that AEW just completely nuked an entire city, and for a couple of decisions that they made on the show. And people are throwing their hands up and saying, pro wrestling sucks, I'm done. And I'm like, why are you working yourself up into such a tizzy? There are things you can question as opposed to them being questionable. There are things you can question. We'll get to that in a little bit. We'll get to that very, very shortly. But like, this was an eventful show that I liked. I thought this was a good show. Overall, like my general paintbrush thoughts are, is that the show had a really rough start. The first few matches on the card, except maybe for one, were really rough to get through. And then at some point, the show hit a cruising speed where everything just started, where everything felt like really, really good. Maybe there was a little too much of the good stuff. There's a few things I question here, but overall, like that's I thought this was a good show. And I'm looking at Cage Match this morning on the day after on the Sunday. The show's at an 8.48, and I'm seeing people doing the equivalent of tearing their shirt off on social media for some reason. I feel like overall the consensus is that, this was a very good show. And I think that, I think the idea is that the standards for AEW pay-per-views are so freaking high that when you get something that maybe feels a little wonky, a little off, then you question yourself and you wonder, well, what the hell is going on? And suddenly you feel underserved as far as AEW pay-per-views go. But I can absolutely promise you, this was a good show. This was an observably good professional wrestling show that I enjoyed myself in, despite the fact that maybe there was a little too much of a good thing. Yeah. Might as well break that point down first and foremost, and then we'll jump straight into the main event. Trust me, I am not part of the crew of people who typically, when I say crew of people, I mean like pundits, content creators, writers, whatever, who bemoan the length of wrestling shows. I'm generally not that guy. Au contraire, I will sit here and I will continue even today to tell you that complaints about show length are typically a content creator problem because of people who feel like they have to watch everything. So they sacrifice so much in their week to watch pro wrestling, may it be between AEW and WWE and New Japan and whatever else, right? Stardom, CMLL, whatever they split their time between, the longer the shows are, the more the investment feels big on that person's part. But if you are a fan of a singular promotion, which is like, honestly, most people, those of us going online to argue about stuff and review stuff and watch a bunch of wrestling, we're the hardcores. We're the exceptions. But I would say that if you are only watching AEW, your time commitment is not that significant. Like normal weeks is 4 hours. That's all you need to consume. And that's even if you are maybe watching Collision, which, according to the ratings, you're not. You're most likely not. If you're only watching Dynamite, that's 2 hours a week. That's not a big deal. And maybe that's all you need. We have the impression that wrestling fans listen to all this shit, that all the other promotions out there are consumed by everyone, but that's not the case. Most people will probably just enjoy wrestling just fine and will stick to the promotion they like. They'll watch their thing and then go home type of thing. Then they'll go and, they'll turn on Netflix and they'll watch Last Samurai Standing or something. Or they'll go out and see a movie. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's this impression that shows are long and it's problematic, but it's problematic to content creators who put themselves in positions where they feel they have to watch everything. And then they get overwhelmed, which is understandable. Don't get me wrong. And I've been there before too. I understand how overwhelming it is, but that's a you problem more than an overall problem. Because ultimately the promotion is going to cater to its fans, not to, people like me who watch too much stuff, who watch a lot of stuff. However, I do feel that AEW pay-per-views recently have suffered from this 5-hour layout that they have. And it's not necessarily just because of pundits and content creators. I think there is a palpable fatigue that happens within the audience that always seems to happen in very long shows, but seems particularly palpable when you're heading into 4.5 hours when you're heading into a 4 hours of your pay-per-view. Let me get this right. When you're heading into hour 4 of the pay-per-view and you're like, holy shit, there's still 3 matches left outside of this one. And you're like, okay, like that can be a little bit of a gut punch, particularly if you're there live, right? Because the one thing that we have at home don't necessarily contend with in these types of circumstances is, these people have to drive home. They have to take public transportation back, and public transportation is not going to be open and operational until, fucking 3 a.m. or whatever. And I think that it happening in the evening like that is problematic. I think it's a little rougher. And I spotted a couple of people in the crowd who brought their kids, right? They brought their younger children to the show. And you could see, like, at some point the kids are just like sitting down. They're clutching their dad, and just like trying to get comfy because the kids are fucking tired. The kids are exhausted. And they were hype when the show was starting and they had the fireworks and they were screaming at Don Callis and all that stuff. But then as the show went on, they just get tired. It's like, well, these are kids. Sure, I agree. But I think I think the mood gets generalized nonetheless, where suddenly you have, you see the energy in people just dwindling. They're sitting down more. They're not reacting as much. So I think I'm starting to see this happen more and more, and I can't chalk it up to just, it's content creators bitching. I still think overall, whenever content creators complain about it, I believe it is a content creator problem first and foremost. But I have been seeing shows suffer because of it. And not just because of the crowd reactions, not just because of the crowd energy, but because there are matches that show up on these cards where you're like, why is this here? This feels unnecessary. Doesn't feel like it should be on the card. I don't understand. And there's a couple of matches like this on this card where I'm like, all right. I mean, this is happening here, but it doesn't feel like a pay-per-view match, doesn't feel all that important. So, that's one part of us having too much of a good thing. And I also think, that this, like on this show, there was really too much blood. There was too much blood on the show. And again, it's not necessarily something that I complain about and I have typically no issues with. But I think the way the show was paced, it really did give you the impression that there's just way too much. Yeah, I think that the decision of putting, I really do believe, in fact, that the decision of putting Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly back to back with Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe was a mistake. And then not that long after, we're 2 matches removed, you get the main event where again, blood is featured heavily. And I'm not talking about a little cut, something to just add a little extra, like when Josh Alexander bled during the trios match. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that the bloodshed becomes an integral part of the story that is being told, right? That it's something that is there to enhance the story itself, the visuals, etc. And I think we may have gotten a little too much of that on this show. And again, I'm not trying to be prudish. I'm just saying it was diminishing returns, where at some point I'm like, all right. I just saw Mox and Kyle O'Reilly, go after each other with a fork, giving me the impression that they want to devour each other. So when I turned to Mark Briscoe and Kyle Fletcher, excuse me, I don't necessarily shrug at it, but I'm a little more impervious to the effect. How about that? I think I'm a little more impervious to the effect. Whereas, and then when it comes back in the main event, where it's just like, okay, don't get me wrong, Joe was bleeding buckets and it was a phenomenal visual. But then again, I'm like, oh, okay, well, it just loses impact. It's diminishing returns. It's something that happens in wrestling all the time, not just in wrestling, but in wrestling specifically. Promotions and promoters for years have always thought that, if this thing is working, if people are giving reactions to this, we need to do this over and over and over again. And another thing that, we can have too much of, and I know this is weird because this is only the second time that it's happened, but the pre-show match bleeding into the main event I think it was cool when they did it at Wrestle Dream because no one saw it coming and it was really, really surprising and new. Now it felt a little more forced, felt a little more, it felt a little more expected. So it didn't feel as cool, didn't feel as organic. And now it's just like, all right. And already in the second iteration of it, I feel around me, people are just like, well, okay. And you know why it didn't work as well either? The reason why it didn't work as well either is because they did the full graphic presentation, you know, with Full Gear presented by DC and all this stuff that they probably felt they had to do because of the sponsor, essentially. But look, I may be misremembering, but I feel like they didn't do that for when they did it at Wrestle Dream. You know, if memory serves me correct, they just faded from black, faded in, and you had Jet Speed and FTR just slugging it out in the ring, and you know, they had the wide shot of them slugging it out in the ring. The fireworks are going off. The crowd is going nuts. You know, and that felt really good. Here, if only because they added the presentation graphic, which again I understand why they had to do in this circumstance. It just came across as forced, as tacked on. It didn't feel as organic. So yes, this too is too much of a good thing, even though it's only the second iteration of them doing this type of thing. I hope they retire this for a long, long time now. I hope they stop. I hope that what's the World's End, right? I hope that at World's End, the Tailgate Brawl only has 3 matches instead of 4. And then everyone speculates, well, which is the one that's going to boil over onto the main card, because it doesn't matter. It's not as fun anymore. It didn't surprise us. It didn't take us by surprise. And we're already in diminishing returns on that front. So there's a lot of stuff on this show, like I said, which is just too much of a good thing. And I think that helped in making things feel a little more heavy-handed, when in reality, you know, when you step back and you look at it, it's like, this is tremendous, but you know, oftentimes a wrestling match will be a sum of components. It's not just going to be the work in the ring. It's going to be a collection of things. It's going to be audience reactions. It's going to be vibes. It's going, there could be so many things that'll just that will help to elevate or harm a match, right? How many times have I talked about wrestling matches improving, getting better because of the crowd reactions, right? The Rock versus Hulk Hogan is everyone's penultimate example of that, where it's like that match achieved the level of recognition that it has because of the Toronto crowd that was going absolutely apeshit for the match. So I don't know. Look, too much of a good thing, ultimately, I believe, is partly at fault for some of the ills that occurred in this on this show. So that's one theme out of the way. And the other theme, I think, will come together as we talk about the main event, where this is what we're going to do. We're going to start straight with the main event. We're going to talk about the events that occurred there, where Samoa Joe defeated Hangman Page to become the new AEW Men's World Champion. No one, I don't care who you are, no one saw this coming. Not seriously, not really. You may have memed it. You may have, tried to make a case for it, just be a devil's advocate, but there was no one who could come on, any type of prediction show, any type of podcast, and say with a straight face, Samoa Joe's beating Hangman Adam Page. And yet here we are. Here we are. I'm going to tell you, when Page, I was so convinced that it could never happen When Hangman Page ate the muscle buster, I was like, oh, he's going to kick out of a muscle buster. Like, that's the first thought that came into my mind. I was like, oh, he's kicking out of a muscle buster. That's weird, but then it starts spinning in your head. You're like, well, they have been booking him strong. Well, he is the champion and so on and so forth. But no, they do the count of 3. And I am stunned. My jaw hits the floor. This was the last thing I was expecting was for this guy, this Samoa Joe guy, to be a 2-time AEW World Champion at this stage of the game. I legitimately don't understand it. But look, this is where we're at. And this match, look, the match was fine. Like, what do you want? Like a 3 3/4, 3.5, 3 3/4 cage match? It was fine. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it enough. You could tell they were about to go on a sprint, right? When Samoa Joe started bleeding within like the first 5 minutes of the match, right? Or I think it was even shorter than that. I'm like, oh shit, okay, we are going, this is a sprint. And Jesus Christ, was Joe bleeding. Holy smokes. And the outcome of it all, Joe standing there, like literally covered in his own blood, hoisting the title. These are fantastic visuals. There's nothing you have to be some kind of way to not look at this and say, this is not fucking cool. This was cool as hell. Despite all the other visuals that we had with blood during the rest of the proceedings, like there was something here because it's Samoa Joe, because it's, it involves the world title. It just looked fucking cool. And I was into it. And then it dawned on me, oh my God, the discourse for the next few days is going to be absolutely unbearable because the Hangman fans are not going to have a good time with this. The Hangman fans are going to be back to full-on anxiety mode, and they are not going to be enjoying this. So I want to get a few things out of the way, because I've heard a bunch of stuff already. I'll give you my thoughts. I don't think this is an indictment as to whether or not the Hangman is a poor business draw, right? I don't think so. I was looking at a few numbers this morning. I was checking out the old WrestleNomics, the old WrestleTix, and just, getting an overall view of everything. And while Hangman wasn't necessarily the guy who made the big business turnaround happen, who wasn't the guy who allowed AEW to start filling up basketball arenas again. He didn't crater business. He did not have a detrimental effect. If anything, he stayed the course. He kept the ship flowing. Like there's no other way to look at this where it's like Hangman was fine. I don't think this is a referendum on Hangman's drawing power, unless the expectations backstage, which we are not privy to. And then when I say backstage, I mean in the higher ups, with the numbers people, the executives, maybe their expectations were much, much higher. Maybe they did see that this was their way to, getting higher attendance figures and popping ratings. Like you can't even look to ratings anymore either with Hangman, with all the fucking nonsense that's going on with Nielsen and the big data and all this bullshit. You can't there's no point of comparison. You can't even say, is this good or is this bad? Everything has changed so much that you really can't put your finger on it and say, well, this is the issue here. And it's going to be this kind of stuff. I've talked about it before. This type of analysis, of business analysis, when it comes to TV viewings, pay-per-view buys, is going to be much more difficult to do moving forward on one hand, because the Nielsen situation is a complete mess, and on the other hand, well, the pay-per-view buys with Max, the numbers are not being shared. We're not going to get these numbers. They're proprietary information. It's corporate secrets. So we're not going to be privy to that information. So it's going to become really, really harder to nail it down. And the only true metric that we will have to gauge this type of information is attendance. And attendance is not the driving factor for the wrestling business in the United States in 2025. It's media, it's TV. And we're not even going to be able to properly analyze the data moving forward. So, it's like, can we sit here and tear apart the Hangman? I don't know. I can't. I don't know who can. I don't know who anyone is assuming that this is some kind of like I said, a referendum on Hangman's drawing power. Now, I think myself, like everyone else, was legitimately expecting this title run to be Hangman's, his what's the word I'm looking for? His tentpole run. That's the one I was looking for. The one that he could hang his hat on, his cowboy hat on. The one that would make him, come across as this top-notch world champion, and that he'd have it for months upon months, fighting every challenger right and left and fighting them off and just being a great champion. Whereas in reality, this reign was shorter than the last one. But then again, it's not as if he lost it within a month. He won the title in July and he makes it all the way to November. I think that's a pretty good title reign. Or is it just me? I think this is pretty good. Had some very good defenses in the meantime. I thought his work with Samoa Joe was really great. I thought the stuff with MJF also was very good. And his match with Kyle Fletcher, am I the only one who just sits here and goes, yeah, no, this was terrible? I can maybe understand people who might be upset because he never got to sink his teeth into a big time feud, other than, let's say, with MJF, a big time feud with one of AEW's big players, like Will Ospreay, like Swerve Strickland. Like he won't have like this badge, this badge where I beat Swerve Strickland during my run or whatever. Like that didn't come together. And again, but then like look at the situation that they were in. Look at the situation that they were in. I mean, when I say they, I mean AEW. All of these guys the two guys that I just mentioned here, they're gone. Could we have worked something out with Kenny Omega? I say yes. I mean, that's absolutely a viable argument there. Like, I've been talking recently about how I feel like Kenny Omega isn't an intrinsic part of AEW anymore. Joe Lanza on his recent Dynamite review, I think it was a Dynamite review, at least on one of his audios, used the term fabric. And that was the word I was looking for to try to properly express how disconnected I feel sometimes Kenny Omega is in regards to AEW. He's not part of the fabric of AEW anymore, or at least he doesn't feel like he is. And I think, rekindling the thing with Hangman and having a feud, I think that could have been really interesting. Do they have something else planned for Kenny? That's possible. But if so, it's about time that they do it, because Kenny Omega being, an afterthought, shoehorned in as the third guy into someone else's feud, over and over again for the past 4 months or so, is not necessarily super exciting to me. It's not that it's not raising the hairs on the back of my neck when that kind of shit happens. So maybe they could have gone with that a little sooner. Or maybe Kenny, look, here's the other part that I always mention. Maybe Kenny can't do it anymore. And we don't know that. Maybe Kenny can't have the high level singles matches that he once had and doesn't want to be put in a position where that will be exposed anymore. We don't know. The point that I'm trying to make here is the following, because I have seen this argument go around quite a bit. Could they have done more with Hangman? Could they have given him more compelling challengers and so on and feuds and so on? And the question I have is, and the answer I should say, I have is maybe. I don't know. I'm hard pressed to make that judgment call because I can't come out here and say straight up, yes, he could have had more high level challengers. You know, there's a lot of people, myself included, who are really excited at the idea that Jay White might return. So people are saying, what about Jay White? It could have been Jay White. I'm like, Jay White's not a top guy in this company, folks. As much as we enjoy Jay White, he's not a top guy in AEW. And the two top guys, Swerve and Ospreay, they're out. Well, at least Swerve was. So then the question goes, well, why didn't they just have Swerve versus Hangman then? Fair. But then we're hanging on to that till Revolution, right? So in the meantime, what do you do with Hangman? Because Revolution's in February. And that's what, like 4 months away still, right? November, December, January, February. Yeah, that's right. My math is good for once. 4 months away. So what do you do with Hangman in the meantime? Do you have him continue his feud with Samoa Joe? Like right now, one of the complaints in the company is that we're recycling the same feud since the summer. And that's all we've been doing, just running through the motions with the same people since summer, month after month. And now AEW turns around and does something completely out of the box that no one was expecting. And we're going to get upset at that as well. We were getting upset because they were always doing the same things. Now they're doing something different. And now we're getting upset because they're doing something different. There are promotions right now in the world, okay, that are happening right now that their main complaint from their fans is this is boring. It's always the same thing. And we're sitting around and we're talking about these promotions and we are begging them to try to do something new, to push new people at the top and so on and so forth. Just try out new things. At the very least, just try something new. And this is a complaint that exists and that is very real. And I have heard the same complaints in regards to AEW over the past few months, where everything sort of feels a little stale, a little samey, because it's the same feuds, it's the same people feuding with each other, having these rivalries. And now we're going to bemoan a promotion for going bold and trying something completely different. I'm like, all right, interesting. Because I can't say I hate this. I can't say I hate Samoa Joe, world champion, completely subverting my expectations. If anything, this is how you get me invested in what your product is offering. Where suddenly from out of the blue, I'm like, oh shit, okay, what are we gonna do here? What's the next thing? And therein lies the secret. Therein lies the main thing, is that we, when I say we as fans, we are going to be tuning in and watching and wondering what the next step was. And this is where AEW cannot fuck up. This is where on Wednesday, right? Straight up this Wednesday, if the follow-up to this event stinks, then it will be a categorical failure. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what the setup is. Is Hangman and Swerve going to band together to fight off the ops? Like, what is the next step here? What is the next thing that we're going to do? And I don't know what to tell you because I don't know. I don't know what it is. And that's the point. And that's why I'm going to tune in on Wednesday. That's why I'm already excited for Wednesday, because I want to see where this direction is leading. Now, again, they might come up with something brilliant, or they might come up with something that is going to completely disappoint me. Like, that's just the nature of the beast. But I would be a bald-faced liar if I were to tell you right here that I am not looking forward to this Wednesday's Dynamite to see what is the next step here. If they were ready to pull the rug from under the Hangman and have Swerve return, and with Samoa Joe being the top guy in the company, all right, okay, I see all the ingredients out on the counter. Now let's see how you put them all together to make something tasty. That's all. And ultimately, isn't that what we should want out of our pro wrestling? Isn't this kind of the thing? And I don't want to sound like a hater either. You know, I love the Hangman. I think how many times have we talked about him in very positive tones here? I don't think I've ever said a bad word about the Hangman. I'm a guy who will stand up for him constantly. I will keep saying over and over, the Hangman can't have a bad match. Whenever the Hangman is up for a big time wrestling match, I'm like, excellent. I'm stoked for it. Let's go. One of the things that I have talked about in regards to the Hangman is that I question whether or not he was a champion whose main attraction is not as much holding the gold than in chasing it. And I think that is a legitimate question to ask yourselves. You know, is he more of a Dusty Rhodes than a Ric Flair? And I think that's an extremely large part of his appeal. I think that's a huge part of his appeal. And look, the booker, the top guy of the company, right? Who is this guy's favorite pro wrestler? Do you know? Do you remember? Tony Khan once told us that Sting was his favorite pro wrestler, right? Sting is not renowned and beloved for his numerous / lengthy world championship reigns. That's not why people remember Sting. That's not why people loved Sting. That's not why people cheered him on. Are you seeing some similarities here? I'm starting to see a few here. So let's push the analogy here. Let's push the analogy. Let's say Hangman is Sting. Let's just say Hangman is Sting. Well, folks, let me tell you, the Hangman is going to be fine. He's going to be fine. He will always be fine. I think this is Hangman's energy. This is his vibe, right? Like, all the great babyface champions have encountered moments where they were screwed out of their title. Like, it's happened so many fucking times. If anything, that's a badge of honor that the Hangman should be, that Hangman fans should be taking upon themselves. That they should be excited for that he's perceived in such great company as Dusty Rhodes, as, you know, Steve Austin, you know, and he's not just like a transitional champion. He's just not a guy whose turn was up or whatever the fuck. We decided to go back to this well again. You know, he was champion one time. We came back over here, did it again. And Hangman is, just because he lost this title does not mean that he is suddenly relegated to the dregs of AEW Dark. I know that doesn't exist anymore, but bear with me for the analogy. It's Hangman Adam Page. He is the guy that everyone agrees with, even within the company, that he is the main character of the promotion. He and MJF, the protagonist and the antagonist. They are both the heart and soul of the company. Again, does that sound familiar to you? And you know, if you're really upset on top of it all, maybe this company is doing their job really fucking well. Like, is kayfabe really truly dead? Because again, like, if you legitimately are upset at Hangman losing last night, I got to tell you, all I can do is applaud applaud the booking committee, the creative group, whatever you want to call it, for putting this together and, making Hangman such an admired and beloved babyface that he loses a world championship match by nefarious means, and people are threatening to never watch the promotion again. Which, let's be honest, is full of shit. They will be back on Dynamite this week to see what happens to their favorite guy, Hangman Adam Page. You're not that invested. You're not that invested to the point of throwing a fit and not tune back in on Wednesday. I don't buy it. I do not buy it. I think, once again, this is a symptom of 2 decades of one big wrestling promotion dictating how things go. Because, and people still having some form of, I don't know what you call it, PTSD or just natural reflections of, I don't know. I don't know exactly how you call it. Bear with me here. Over 2 decades, Vince McMahon would build people to championships, and then when they'd win the championship, then they'd be tossed down onto the mid-card and would do jack shit. Unless you were a special hand-picked few, right? If you were thrust into the world title picture and it wasn't successful or you lost the title, then you would be sent back down to the mid-card and you would wallow there. And I think this is part of what these reactions are about, because Vince McMahon basically spent 20 plus years telling us, or so, right? 20 years or so telling us this is the only way to do pro wrestling, and people still haven't come out of that. People still haven't decided that they truly want an alternative to pro wrestling. They want something that resembles what they know, right? Which is why AEW sometimes finds itself struggling with an identity which is somewhere between sports entertainment and great pro wrestling. So I believe, I have trouble even blaming these people who maybe have only watched WWE all their life, and again, can't really blame them. But maybe that's all they've watched all their lives, and this is how they perceive it. Now that Hangman is lost, it's perceived as a burial. It's perceived as something that will stain the reputation of the Hangman Adam Page, right? And that's preposterous to me. And it's not, first of all, it's not reasonable. Second of all, it's not mature. Third of all, that's not how AEW works either. And if you have been following booking patterns for All Elite Wrestling, you would know this. You would know that if anything, the upper mid card of this company is extremely healthy. And they're about to welcome in someone else into this upper mid card in the person of Kyle Fletcher, who I believe has lost upwards, but we'll get to that in a second. I don't know why we're back to square one when it comes to the Hangman fans and their anxiety and the idea that the sky is falling because their guy didn't win, because their guy is not the champion. He had a solid run. I don't care whether it was longer or shorter than the other one, than the previous one. This one was super solid. It was a solid championship run. I thought he came across as a great champion, was dominant. It led to a new, type of character for the Hangman, where he's not riddled by doubt. He was confident. He was strong. on this night, Full Gear 2025 presented by DC, he was just overwhelmed by trickery and shenanigans. That's all there is to it. I think a lot of this reaction is in part to 2 decades of one man's singular vision of pro wrestling that just did not work. And people are terrified of that. And it still festers in the back of their brain. So when something like this happens, they're like, oh shit, our guy's cooked, but he's not. And he's going to be in some kind of program with his greatest rival, Swerve Strickland, his frenemy, right? Which is something that people have been begging for. There have been so many people over the summer who were begging for Swerve and Hangman to work together. And now they're on the verge of doing that. They're on the cusp of having Swerve and Hangman team up to go after a common foe. And they're not focusing on that. No. They're focusing on this unabridged disaster that is Hangman Page losing the title in the least clean way possible. Anyway, that's the long and short of it, but he's going to be fine. And I don't know how many times I have to tell people. I don't know how many times I have to repeat this over and over and over again. Hangman is fine. He will always be fine. If there is one man that you should not worry about in regards to his standing or his position in the company, it is Hangman Adam Page. People. Jesus. Anyway, I like the match well enough. If I were to, 3 3/4 stars is what I'd give this. Lots of stuff that annoyed me. But, that I'm trying to no longer get upset about because there's really no point anymore. There's no such thing as a steel cage match as I remember them where everyone is locked out. That's finished. That just doesn't happen anymore. It's just not a thing anymore. Everyone gets in and out of cages. So it's like, what's the point? And I said I wouldn't get upset, and I'm not upset, but I do have to convey this thought here. Like, once again, we have a cage match where the door is locked with a fucking chain and padlock, right? And no one can, and people and everyone can then get in, right? Powerhouse Hobbs just tears the chain off and is like, oh, okay, who the fuck cares anymore? Like, in a steel cage, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Cages are porous. Like, it was the same thing. It was the same thing in the Blood and Guts match. It's the same thing here. None of it matters. It doesn't matter anymore. It just doesn't fucking matter. But both guys bloodied themselves up. Katsuyori Shibata tries to interfere. Eddie Kingston shows up to take him out. And then there's a ref bump here before Hobbs tears the door off or the chain off. Why was there a ref bump? Isn't this no disqualification? It's a steel cage, right? Or was there disqualifications? Why did we need the ref bump? They're throwing each other into the mesh and whatnot. Why did we need a ref bump? I couldn't tell you. But ultimately, this leads Hook running in, and you think he's coming in to save Hangman, but no. In fact, he picks up a title belt and cracks Hangman over the dome with it, and that leads to the Muscle Buster in the finish. Here's something else. Here's something else that people are upset about. Hook being put in this position. Hook being elevated, as people say, right? The people have been going on. So many other guys that could have been put in this position. I'm like, what is this position? What is this position? He's the young boy. And look, I know people, I know a lot of people are out on Hook, and a lot of people don't like Hook these days. And look, you saw it in the pre-show match. When he came out and he was doing shit, no reaction. There's no reaction for this kid. So they might as well turn him heel and try something else. Because whatever they're trying out right now isn't working. Again, why would we be upset at the idea of trying something out? Now, do you not like Hook? That's a whole other story. Because I'll tell you one thing. There's one guy who likes Hook. One guy who likes Hook a lot, and his name is Tony Khan. And he's gonna try his best to get this guy over. He sees him as a project. This should be evident at this point. And I don't see what the big deal here is. He's going to be the fourth guy in a 4-man team. Why are we making a big deal out of this? He's the guy who ran in, swung the belt, and revealed that he's joining the Ops. You know, it's kind of like Daniel Garcia when he decided to go heel and join the Death Riders. It's kind of the same thing. And is Daniel Garcia suddenly in the midst of some tremendous push? No. He's the fifth guy in a team of 5 or 6. How, you know, whatever amount of people are in the Death Riders these days. These aren't like, who's considering this spot to be some coveted gleaming spot that people backstage were fighting over. He ran in and threw a belt. He's going to be one of Samoa Joe's lackeys. What the fuck? Such a weird reaction. I don't care. I don't care enough. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't understand it. Hook is going to be there. This is what's going to happen. Hook is going to be there so that Hangman can beat the piss out of him. So Swerve can beat the piss out of him. People are acting like suddenly he's on the main event tier. I hope everyone fucking relaxes here. And honestly, look, if next thing I know, Hook is on the top levels suddenly of AEW, I will eat my words. I will eat my hat. I will eat some crow. I will eat a lot of things and take it back. But there's nothing here that indicates that he is on a certain path to superstardom. He is the fourth guy in a 4-man group. And listen, for those of you who do listen to my stuff more on the regular, you know very, 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 very clearly, I've said this before, that I have bemoaned Hook abandoning being in Samoa Joe's entourage because I thought it helped Hook get over. It helped him come across as more credible as a threat because of the Samoa Joe rub. And imagine then working with Samoa Joe, helping you out with promos and whatnot, because Samoa Joe's a killer promo on top of it all. Imagine all of that, right? But I get it. I know people don't like Hook these days. People don't like him. So hey, look, it's going to be better than whatever the fuck they were doing with Eddie Kingston. It's not as if this Eddie Kingston return has been setting the world on fire. It's not as if, why aren't people more mad about that? Now that is something that AEW has flubbed. Eddie Kingston's post-injury return. This is a guy who should have everyone super excited about. You should be into it. What's next for Eddie? That kind of shit. That's what people should be into. Instead, Eddie is just, I don't know what they're doing with him. They put him on TV. They don't let him promo. It's topsy-turvy land. There's something that AEW is clearly fucking up, and I can't say the same with Samoa Joe being world champion. I just can't. Because I don't know. Let's have this conversation in a few weeks. Anyway, how long have I talked about the main event? We've only talked about one match, really. Maybe we should start moving on to look. This was fine. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good main event that eventually was that just led to a story, to the big return of Swerve Strickland, which people were excited about. I'm excited about. I mean, this is, if you did not feel like there was a re-injection, that this was a shot in the arm, again, I don't know what to tell you. Like your blinders are completely focused on the Hangman, and I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Because at the end, when I'm seeing Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland standing side by side, one guy, on the verge of hysterics, covered in blood, caked in blood, and the other dude just standing there menacing, yoked out of his mind. Is it just me? Or did Swerve Strickland put on some beef? both of these guys just standing there staring. I'm like, this fucking rules. Like this is a hell of an image, and I'm kind of pumped for this. I'm kind of pumped. What kind of feeling are they going to have me go through with this, moving forward now? I don't hate any of this. I did think it was really funny, that despite like being in a moment where he has to take out 10 guys, being, meaning Swerve Strickland with the Ops Dojo, which is a new thing. Apparently that's a thing. Samoa Joe's running apparently now he's running an online, he's running an online men's, betterment class, I guess. Is that what he's doing? Is that what he's doing now? He's now one of these grifters who does this kind of thing, one of these alpha male things where it's like, men got to be men and you got to act like men kind of thing. Is this what the Ops Dojo is? I kind of hope it is. It'd be really like if they wanted to expand on it, and then it turns out that it's like one of these things where it's like pay $1,000 a month and get one phone call with me, Samoa Joe, a month, where I'll give you the motivation that you need, and so on and so forth. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. If not, God bless you. Like you're better off not knowing what I'm talking about. But okay, so back to Swerve Strickland. But coming back to Swerve Strickland, he's got 10 guys to fight off at the same time, and yet he still finds time to do, some of his tumbling moves. He's just not slugging people out. He's like, oh, I gotta tumble over here and put my leg over like this and swing him around and doop-de-doo and then throw him out, kind of thing. And I'm like, and it's Swerve. It's, it is what it is. If you can't accept Swerve Strickland for this kind of stuff moving forward, in his brain, he's seeing himself like, fucking John Wick, just jumping around and doing shit. And anyway, it's fine. It's not a nitpick. It doesn't make me upset. It's just like, of course, this is what he does. So yeah, so that's the main event, and those are my thoughts. Basically, everyone chill the fuck out. If you're upset, just chill out. I'm sure, chill out until we see where they're going with this and what the end result is. Tune in on Wednesday, not Tuesday because it won't be on, but tune in on Wednesday. Let's see where this is going, and it's all in the follow-up to this angle, to this world title loss that will determine whether it was worth it or not, whether this was good or not. All right. We are going to tackle the rest of the review in match order. I know sometimes I like to do the business end and work our way down kind of thing or whatever, but no, we're gonna go from the top. And when I say from the top, I'm talking about the tailgate brawl. We're going to start with that, where the Bang Bang Gang defeated Bowens and Castor, Big Bill and Brian Keith, and the Outrunners to win $200,000. All right. My singular note here, or my most important note, is that Juice Robinson had sex with the bag of money after winning the match. So there you go. We have Paul White joining commentary because he's going to be set up he's going to be there for the next big match. We get a backstage promo from Samoa Joe introducing us to the Ops Dojo and hyping his main event later on. And that leads us to the Costco guy, AJ, or Big Boom AJ, and QT Marshall defeating RPG Vice. And I swear to God, I don't know who thinks this Boom and Rizzler stuff is still hot and cool in late 2025. I don't know. I never cared for this, and I care about it even less. I think this has been diminishing returns. I think the people enjoyed the match here nonetheless, but not as much as the QT AJ Big Boom Costco guys match that they had last year. Wasn't it that? Something to that effect. Look, anyway, it doesn't matter. Like as far as social media influencers, these guys, this ship has sailed. These guys are done. I hope I never see them again. I hope this was the last of it. I really have nothing to give to these guys. Nothing. Don Callis is backstage, giving an interview with Josh Alexander and the Bucks. This is where they lay the framework that Kazuchika Okada still hasn't showed up at the building yet. All right. Eddie Kingston and Hook squash the Workhorsemen. It is what it is. And then the trios match happens, which is, I guess, the first real match of the pay-per-view. We talked about it earlier in the review, where the match starts on the pre-show and then boils over onto the main card. Look, I've already talked about it. But look, for posterity's sake, right? This is Sky Team, Mystico, Mascara Dorada, and Neon defeating the Don Callis family trio of Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, and Hechicero. Now, this match made me mad. This match made me angry. You want to talk about things that make people angry? You know, I'm talking about everyone saying cool the fuck down when it comes in regards to Hangman and whatnot. Well, this is probably, people would tell me this. Cool the fuck down regarding this match. But this match made me angry. It made me so angry because it stunk. I hated this match so much for all of the sports entertainment and fucking nonsense of, you know, Mystico's arm getting injured and then going back, you know, to get checked on, only to return later, and then fucking Okada showing up in his car, his sports car, and they shoot his feet coming out of the vehicle. I'm like, yuck, 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 yuck. And his robe is waiting there for him with his championship title. Blech. This all fucking stunk. And I'll tell you why it's making me so mad. If it were anyone else, if it was the fucking Outrunners versus the Workhorsemen, I wouldn't give a shit. I'd be just skipping over this. But in that ring, in this match, you've got 6 of the best pro wrestlers in the fucking world. One of the people in this match is arguably the wrestler of the year in Mystico. But you've got 6 guys, either way you slice it. Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, Hechicero, Mystico, Dorada, Neon, all exceptional pro wrestlers. A match that you could unquestionably say, this is a match that Tony Khan booked for the Sickos. Back in the day, before the Sickos term was completely co-opted, and now it's just like a word to describe AEW fans, right? This is a match that was built, that was put together for people who love pro wrestling, who stay connected with other stuff. Anywhere else, this match goes 15-20, and people are buzzing about it for the rest of the week. If it is put on anywhere else than AEW, instead, this becomes a backdrop for Takeshita and Okada to continue their little feud. And meanwhile, you've got the entire Sky Team there. You've got them all. They're all there. And they're not doing anything Sky Teamish. Look, Mystico's run at some point, he is just phenomenal. He's just landing shit right and left. I'm like, he's working. He's working hard. Good. But did you finish this match looking at this? If this is your first time seeing a guy like Neon and saying, wow, this Neon guy, he is, wow, he's something else. What an incredible pro wrestler. Look at all these feats he's doing. No. And you're not going away saying another great stellar performance by Mascara Dorada. No. And Hechicero having no opportunities to put on his magic either. And Takeshita and Okada just bumping chests, getting angry with each other. at some point Okada unexplicably wailing on Takeshita's back. I'm like, what? Like, why are we having physical contact? What's the point? The accidental stuff I can understand, but Okada outright just beating him up? Why isn't Takeshita fighting back then? Like, that didn't make sense to me. Why didn't Takeshita just pop right up and pop one right in the Rainmaker's mouth? Why didn't he do that? I hated this match so much. You can't. I can't properly express it. I hated it so much. I hated it. It just boggles my mind that 6 unequivocal great pro wrestlers in one match, and we decide to do that. Just grab ass, goofy, nonsensical, useless bullshit. Whereas if this had been big, if this had been happening in Arena Mexico, I swear to God, we'd be talking about it for weeks. People would be saying on social media going, you have to see this match. Everyone would be buzzing about it. We got this fucking bullshit instead. No, I was not in a good mood when this show started. Místico has Hechicero tap through the La Mística for what it's worth. This is a 2.25 star match. I hated this so much. I really, it's too competent for me to go lower, but my feeling just is there's such contempt and anger for this match. It's incredible. Pac defeats Darby Allin, as I thought he should. This was a good, solid match. At first, Darby is, the idea is that Pac says, I'm a better overall wrestler than you, so I'm going to challenge you to a no frills, no stipulation, straight up wrestling match. So he's assuming he has the upper hand in this circumstance. But Darby, from the get-go, he's out wrestling him and he's putting him in holds and whatnot. So what does Pac have to do? He has to resort to nonsense. Not nonsense, but underhanded trickery. And then he starts tearing at all of the tape that Darby has after his stay in the hospital because of his 2nd-degree burns. And we actually see the fucking burns, and it looks really, really nasty. And no one should ever do flaming table spots ever. And he does this great spot. Pac does where he's doing an Indian burn on the arm, which has the burns. I don't know. Can we say the term Indian burn? Is that still okay? Or should I be using another term? And I apologize if it's insensitive. I even checked online to see if there was something else, that if it had transitioned to another expression. I don't know. I'm gonna admit, I have no clue. But that's nonetheless what he did. Pac did on Darby Allin, which got a big reaction from the crowd and myself. And this was good. I'd give this a solid, I'd give this a 4. How about that? I'd give this a good solid 4. This was a good pro wrestling match. And of course, Pac can't get the job done himself. Wheeler Yuta comes in to distract Darby Allin and the ref, which allows Pac to use Darby's bat to get the win. So even after himself saying, I can beat you in a straight pro wrestling match, no gimmicks needed, he needs a gimmick to win. It's perfect heel heat. It's perfect heel heat and for Pac here. No notes. I enjoyed this. This was fun. Next, we had the women's tag team 4-way match. All of these women who are moving into the semifinals of the AEW Women's Tag Team Title Tournament, where they get to pick the stipulation for their semifinal match. The Timeless Love Bombs defeat the Babes of Wrath, Sisters of Sin, and Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir. I had no use for this match on the card. This is something you could have shaved off. This is a match you could have just moved away or put, something else. But when we're talking about the show being a little too long, there was no purpose to this match. There was no purpose. Who cared? Who cares whether there's a stipulation to one of the semifinals? I couldn't give a shit. I don't care. Why is this suddenly on a pay-per-view? You know, I know there's, this is probably for Tony Khan to have a second women's match on the card to avoid the typical criticism that he has, but then just build a singles match. Just build a singles match with anyone else on your roster. You've got more than enough women, and this was nonsense. Or better yet, this is the thing that I didn't understand. I thought that we were going to get the finals of this tournament at Full Gear, and that would have been interesting. This would have been a lot better than this. I don't know why this tournament has been taking so long. I don't know why they didn't flashbang it and just make it happen. Now, like what? There's 2 more matches left, right? There's the 2 semifinals, and are the finals going to be at World's End? Well, that's in 4 weeks. Like, it's completely imbalanced. It's, you know, no, I don't like it. The rhythm is completely off. I don't like it. I don't like any of this. And I didn't care much for the match either. I think I gave this 2 3/4 stars. Like, we were not off to a rousing start. FTR defeated Brodito to become the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. What a great match. This was absolutely phenomenal. I love this so much. And so what this does is that it ends up giving FTR the titles, of course, but in a great package, right? Throughout the match, FTR are doing all sorts of shenanigans to try to get the win. And the only thing that they end up doing really is wearing Bandito specifically down more and more and more. And when they finally are able to take out Brody King and leave him lying out on the floor, they're able to hit like a final shatter machine on Bandito to get the win, and Bandito defiant till the very end. Right, the whole thing. It's like never stop fighting. That was Brodito's little mantra moving forward. And look, I don't have a problem with this either. And especially when it comes to FTR, who I believe are doing the best work maybe of their careers right now. Definitely the best work that they've done in AEW, but I might even throw in their NXT peaks here. And I'm not just talking about in-ring work. I'm talking outside stuff. Everything that Dax and Cash have been doing has been absolutely phenomenal. They were designed to be just heelish, old school bully tag teams that just are completely aping, the Midnight Express. It's fantastic. And it's so refreshing. And they're so good at it. Their segment last Wednesday with Ricky Steamboat was so good. And Dax always looking to pick fights with kids on his way to the ring. Phenomenal stuff. Their entire presentation since their heel turn and their pairing up with Stoke has been phenomenal. And Stokely has absolutely found his way in this one here. He's been so good. Being I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but a modern day Jim Cornette. We're a long way from Stokely Hathaway managing the Indu Share. Wasn't that what they were called in NXT? Remember that you remember that little period of Stokes' life? What was his name in NXT? I don't remember. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Did you remember when there was this very short period where he was the manager for Indu Share? Holy shit. We've come a long way. It works perfectly for him. Everything is coming together here. This has been such a good pairing, and FTR have been excellent in developing these characters and being just complete assholes. And their in-ring work, well, we saw it here. They were phenomenal. This was one of these FTR matches where everything clicks, and the finish, the final sequence into the finish was extraordinary. Shatter machines, power bombs, counters and whatnot. Crowd is super into it. The crowd is up on their feet during this match. Probably this is one of the matches I think that had the most heat of the entire show. I'm thrilled with this. I don't know how you could have exited this pay-per-view without belting up FTR. They more than deserved it, and this is a great breath of fresh air. And again, like, I know a lot of people are upset that Brodito lost for multiple reasons, but again, they're not buried. It's not suddenly like, oh no, this team is buried 7 feet under the ground. This is a team that still, to me, comes across as a pairing that wasn't necessarily supposed to get over like it did, but it did. And they decided to put the titles on them at the time because it was a good idea. And now to have them have your top babyface tag team lose to the top heel tag team is just, it's perfect. It's fine. And now what happens is, well, Brodito gets the chase. Brodito gets to chase the belts. Again, like, I don't understand. Like, everyone now wants these 1,000-day runs with their guys, and I'm like, no, like, this is good. It's keeping things moving, keeping things fresh. I don't have an issue with this. I think it's fine. I think it's okay with Brodito deciding that, being in a position where it's like, well, we got to dust ourselves off and we got to work up the rankings. Here's another, if they still had rankings, we could all get behind this. But now it's all, and I agree, it's all more obtuse now. It's more like, oh, well, who gets the shot next and whatnot. Look, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about an FTR title reign. They are going to be absolutely insufferable. And again, like, I know there's some people who just do not like FTR because they were associated with CM Punk, and CM Punk is persona non grata in AEW, and AEW fans, hate him with the passion. And they were his buddies. So I understand that people have a natural dislike of FTR, but the thing is that right now FTR is doing some of the best work of their career. So I mean, if you can't separate the two, accept that both things are real, that yes, they were pals with CM Punk, but yes, they are also doing some extraordinary work right now. Well, it's your loss, because this is a tremendous tag team run that they're on, and it's so much fun. It's one of the best reasons to be watching Collision on a regular basis. And I think Dynamite could benefit from more FTR on it. Ricochet wins the Casino Gauntlet match to become the inaugural AEW National Champion. Now, before anything else happens, okay, before we do one more step forward, there was the entire drama around the national title and its lineage and all of that. You know what I'm talking about. We talked about it on stream a bit. All of the drama around that involving the NWA and whatnot, and people realizing that the national title was still an active title and whatnot. And, Tony Khan going, oh, well, it's fine. It's going to be its own thing. We're not going, we're going to, basically saying that he talked to William Patrick Corgan and they had a nice talk, and said, that the AEW national title was going to have its own lineage, and he doesn't want to encroach on the NWA and whatnot, right? But despite that, turns around, reveals the title, and it looks exactly like the NWA television title. Did you notice this? Am I the only one? But it looks exactly like the NWA national TV title. I mean, it's not. I don't know. It's like, hey, look, I'm pretty sure Tony Khan is going to get another phone call. He's going to have another phone call with William Patrick Corgan. I don't care enough to really get upset about it. It doesn't matter to me. So yeah, listen. This was the Casino Gauntlet, and well, these were the participants, right? We had Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, Ricochet, Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, Orange Cassidy, Wheeler Yuta, Kevin Knight, Roderick Strong, Mark Davis, Speedball Mike Bailey, and Dad Magic, Matt Menard. And Ricochet ends up winning the whole thing like I thought he would, like I thought it should be. Everything is right in the world. I think it's a title that suits him, it fits him. And I once again call for a moratorium on the Casino Gauntlet matches. I begged AEW to not do one for a long time after the one at All In. I still think the one at All In was worse than this one, but I didn't think this was particularly fun or interesting. We need a real deal moratorium. Bring this back in a year at this point. 2 years if you can handle it. Make us miss this shit. Or if you do it, make sure that it goes back into the spirit of the first couple that were done, I believe, in Daly's Place, right? Wasn't that the site of the first one? Because in the spirit of the first ones, there was this idea that anyone could be in it, anyone at all, and that included outsiders. So yes, on one hand, you're expecting surprises. There were no surprises here, but you are expecting someone who doesn't go here to be thrown in the mix, right? That's one thing. But the other thing that made the first few special is that no matter where you were on the card, you could be in this match. Because we had Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland showing up, in the original ones. And now it's just like, I understand these are a bunch of mid-carders that you're going to put in here because it's a mid-card title. Because your main eventers are all busy doing other stuff on this card. I understand. And the All-In one, well, Max was in it. MJF was in it because he was win because he was the guy who was supposed to win. But it had that level of unpredictability that just is not there right now with this title. With this match type. It's just not there anymore. So I'm figuring might as well just really, put this in a box, put it in the closet, and just close the door and leave it there for a while until you go back into the closet because you're looking for something else, and then you see the box and it's written on the side, right? Casino Gauntlet. And hey, I remember this. This was a lot of fun. Maybe we should do this again. Because I don't know. It did nothing for me. And when you have people like, again, no disrespect, but, Mark Davis, Daniel Garcia, Yuta, Kevin Knight, these are all people who are not winning. These are all people who you're like, of course these people are not winning. Matt Menard. Can we blow off this Matt Menard, Daniel Garcia shit? Because that's what it is. I don't care. I don't care. If we're going to blow it off, have Dan Garcia, rip this man to shreds. But Daniel Garcia and him brawling into the crowd to take Garcia out of the match, enough's enough. And I'm not necessarily asking for a drawn out feud here. This can be a nice little TV feud that you end on an episode of Dynamite in a couple of weeks, but with a decisive, a great win by Daniel Garcia, who finally breaks away from Matt Menard, puts him in the sharpshooter, what does he call it, the dragon tamer, and just twists him up, makes him beg for his life. Matt Menard taps, Garcia holds on to the move, for 15 minutes after. You know what I mean? We got to move on from this. It's not interesting. It's not interesting. It's Matt Menard. Daniel Garcia's main concern should not be Matt Menard. It should be just about anything else. But this feels under Garcia. This is not how you're going to elevate Garcia. So let's go. Let's do it. Let's get rid of Menard, take him away from the scene so that we can move on with Daniel Garcia doing other things. Anyway, Ricochet lands the spirit gun on Kevin Knight for the win. Kyle O'Reilly defeated Jon Moxley in the no holds barred match. Excellent. Excellent match. This is a 4.5 star match from your boy, Warren Hayes here. This rocked. This rocked so much. I love this match. I love how it's all so consistent with everything they've been telling, all these stories they've been telling about Jon Moxley. It's like no holds barred, right? So yeah, as Danielson explained on commentary, which I really, really appreciated, the idea of the no holds barred is that you can do moves that are typically illegal, like, you know, small joint manipulation and stuff like that, right? Chokes and closed fists. No holds are barred. Of course, now it's become something a little wider. Between that and an ODQ, it doesn't really matter. You know, there's really no difference. But I like that Danielson took the time to underscore what no holds barred historically, what it means. And it sets the tone, because these guys they're grappling to begin with. They're doing stuff. They're doing some mat work. They're, locks and holds and bars and whatnot. But at some point, Jon Moxley's like, fuck this shit. Give me the fork. Marina, give me the fork. And so she hands him the fork so he can get into the ring. And then the match just goes completely off the rails as to what was happening, because Jon Moxley realizes early on he can't out wrestle Kyle O'Reilly. He just can't do it. So we're going to have to go to the well and just bring out the ultra violence. And it was so good. It was awesome. Mox is Pillmanizing Kyle's arm throughout it all. And we got the fork is used by Kyle as well. He uses it on Moxley, on his head, on his hand. You get the chain involved, which is the bane of Jon Moxley's existence. Look, all of this made perfect sense. It was a great, it was a great match that really found all of its essence in everything that has been happening between Kyle O'Reilly and Jon Moxley for the past month or so, which, like I said on the preview, just came out of nowhere and has been so great. It's been so sneaky good, where you thought at first it'd be just like a throwaway match, Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly, and then it becomes something else. And their culmination is this excellent high-level death match that had so many small little moves, things that would work in a small room, but here we were on national television in a big venue. When Kyle is holding on to his trunks to help him get some leverage to prevent Moxley from completely twisting up his arm into a pretzel. That's the kind of thing you see, at your indie shows, because everyone's close up to see all this shit happening. And yet we're doing it here. I thought this was phenomenal. I thought this was a great deathmatch style affair, intimate, almost, it didn't feel grandiose, in the sense that it was spectacle and all huge things happening. It was all very focused, very focused, very specific. It's as if they were fighting. They were truly fighting each other, and not for the audience. They were fighting for themselves. They wanted to really maim the other dude. It's almost as if we were seeing something that we weren't necessarily supposed to be watching. I thought this was absolutely phenomenal. And once again, Jon Moxley does it again, folks. I will continue to harp on the fact that there are people early this year who wanted Jon Moxley out of AEW. I hope all these people are eating their fucking feet for breakfast. I still can't believe that was a discussion that was having earlier this year because they didn't like an angle. Jesus Christ, that they thought this guy was tanking the company. Jon Moxley has been nothing but good. Good to great, to excellent even. And he's been wrestling. He's going to be on Dynamite this week, and he's likely going to be wrestling. And he's been having a tremendous 2025. And I know we're all high up on guys like Takeshita and stuff, for instance, but I have been high on Jon Moxley this year for longer than a lot of you have. Once we got the Death Riders on track finally in a post-Adam Copeland world, it has been nothing but excellent. Focus with the Death Riders, forgot this idea that, we want to break down AEW to reshape it and all of that, and all this NWO stinky stuff, and fighting the AEW B team and C team even. None of that ever, it doesn't matter. All of it ended up being just junk. Because once we got a real handle on it, it became phenomenal. And Mox is motivated. He's into it. And it shows. Because now he's showing up every week and he wants to wrestle and, just tremendous stuff. Now, the one thing that I I think that AEW has to be careful of, now that he's lost, against Darby, he's lost he lost the blood and guts, and he lost this pay-per-view match here. We got to be careful now that Jon Moxley doesn't start losing his sheen because he's starting to lose, because he's putting too many guys over. Because then we're going to have a Chris Jericho situation where Chris Jericho only put over other guys, lost to every guy, lost most of his feuds and rivalries. And look, and you can say what you want, but the reality is that, and you can go, you can argue with me, but that's the reality. He lost most of his feuds, put most of his opponents over, and never won after. Never started winning matches after that. All he would do was lose. So what happens then is that, winning a match against Chris Jericho doesn't have the same feel, doesn't have the same vibe or importance, because Chris Jericho loses all the time, loses all his big matches. Whereas Mox still feels like a significant win for Kyle O'Reilly because it's Jon Moxley. But now Mox has to get into a feud where he's going to get his heat back, where he will go on to pay-per-view and beat a guy. He can't have it the other way. If he starts losing all of his pay-per-view matches, then we're just going to be in a Chris Jericho cycle, and Jon Moxley won't be meaningful anymore. And now a lot of people were hoping that the Death Riders were going to turn on him. This is really a situation where a lot of people worked themselves into a shoot. If you ask me, I'm not against the idea. Maybe it'll happen. I was thinking that it might happen here, but we're not ready to pull that trigger yet, if that trigger is to be pulled. And Kyle O'Reilly, man, I'm still a little baffled that this is the guy that's getting all these wins. It's so out of nowhere, but I like it. You see what I mean? When I'm talking about AEW trying stuff out, they're trying they tried something out here. They were like, why doesn't Kyle go on this out of nowhere streak of wins against Jon Moxley, right? Or undefeated streak against Jon Moxley to a degree. And it worked out. And I posit the question is what do you do with Kyle O'Reilly, really? Because, I don't think you don't push Kyle O'Reilly to a world championship level, but there's definitely uses for him. I don't know. It's all very curious, but I like it. I like it because it came out of nowhere. It's different. They decided to try something out. It turns out it worked, and I don't know why AEW fans are not extending the same type of grace to the world championship situation, but we've already talked about that. I did read this morning, though, that apparently Kyle O'Reilly he suffered a few injuries during the match, which is going to keep him from participating in the Continental Classic. And that sucks, because that would have been cool. But I've only seen it it's Tony Khan said it at the post-match presser, post-event presser, post-pay-per-view presser. And was that kayfabe or not? It doesn't sound like kayfabe, but I don't see many places reporting it either. But it might be more people reporting it now by the time I record this, and maybe the word is spread. I don't know. That is a bummer. That is a bummer for Kyle if he was supposed to be in the C2 and now he can't do it anymore. That stinks. Mark Briscoe defeated Kyle Fletcher. So I thought this match was very good as well. Excellent even. But this is where we're starting to suffer from the too much of a good thing, because we literally had that kind of match just immediately previous to this. So I would have spaced it out a little more on the card. Or maybe have one of these matches not be, not have deathmatch connotations to it or hardcore connotations to it, because it was good. But I think, there was a level of exhaustion to it too, where it's like, okay, more of all of this. I just saw this. And we're doing more and more of this. But this was phenomenal. Like, Fletcher and Briscoe work so well together. These guys are so good wrestling each other, and both guys give maximum effort. This was great. This was excellent as well. This is like a 4.25 style match. Got Screwdriver involved. I got really nervous when Kyle did the spot where he had the screwdriver poke through the turnbuckle. So it's up like a spike. I'm like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. I know he wasn't going to do the generico brain buster on top of it. I know he wasn't going to do that, but you're just like, anything could happen now. There could be just like, just a mistimed move. A guy slips, and then it suddenly becomes a fucking disaster. Match ends with Mark Briscoe doing a razor's edge from the second turnbuckle through a barbed wire table, and then lands the J Driller into some thumbtacks, because they were there as well. Thumbtacks to win the TNT Championship. Yeah, look, I thought it became pretty clear that he was going to win when they did the feel good video package, at the start of the match with his family and whatnot. People were super into it. Look, this is what I said that they had to do. They had to have Mark Briscoe win a big one. They had to. This was the big one. This is his first singles title in AEW. This is a guy who works his ass off every time he gets into the ring. He's so good, does exactly what he's asked to do. He's got a good crowd connection as well. This was a no-brainer. And, Kyle isn't worse for wear. He's just moving on. I think he's losing up on this one here. I think his TNT Championship run did exactly what needed to be done for him and to help elevate his stock. Now his stock is elevated. Now I think he's ready to do anything else at this point and maybe go hang with the top guys. Again, I don't have an issue with it in the very least. I enjoyed this match, but I probably would have enjoyed it more if we hadn't just been through O'Reilly versus Moxley. I probably would have liked this even more. I think that if in a couple of years, people just hone in on this match and they watch it, they'll probably go nuts and say, why didn't people like this more? Without having the context of watching the whole pay-per-view is what I'm saying. Josh Alexander and the Young Bucks defeated Kenny Omega and Dino 210. I thought this was all right, but it didn't blow me away. And I thought that it was going to be so much better than this. I thought it was really, 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 really going to be so much better than this. I don't have many notes. That's basically what I wrote. It's like, I just thought this was going to be so much better. There was some great sequences. I thought Jack Perry had a particularly good sequence, especially the one where he he counters or reverses one of the Bucks, the Bucks springboard power bomb move that they do. Well, not spring bomb. It's not spring bomb. Not springboard, but I guess the rope hung assisted power bomb. Anyway, whatever you want to call it. And he reversed out of that with a perfectly timed Hurricane Rana, which was fantastic. And we got an angle at the end. The Bucks hit the BTE trigger on Jack Perry for the win. And of course, the real story here is, after the match, the Bucks give their money, and everyone is saying, "All right, you're a member of the Don Callis family now," and whatnot. And then Don Callis sort of walks them back up the ramp, while the rest of the Don Callis family beat up on Kenny Omega. Dino 210 are dead at this point, and the Bucks have a crisis of conscience, and they choose the power of friendship over the power of money, and they run down to save Kenny Omega to the disdain of Don Callis and his acolytes. They even hug, they being the Bucks and Omega, so the Elite are back together. If this doesn't start to feel like a retirement run, I don't know what it is. Look, I'm going to keep saying it over and over and over again, folks. Our time with Kenny Omega is limited, more limited than it's ever been. Better make sure that he's in spots that we want to see him in. Anyway, good babyface moment here. Got the people excited. People are happy that the Elite are back, and yeah, I don't have many notes on this match. And the last match we're going to talk about is Chris Statlander defeating Mercedes Moné to retain the AEW Women's World Championship. I thought this match was great. I thought this was a very good, technically sound, exciting pro wrestling match. This was meat and potato stuff, as people like to say. Not too much, not overly reliant on spectacle and whatnot. And you could tell, this match started off really, really fast. And you could tell that Mercedes was really into winning this title. Because she very, very rarely in this match took the time to emote to the crowd or do her, her dopey little dance, She wasn't confident. She was focused on the match. She was focused on winning. She was completely all in on it. And I really liked that. And Statlander was overwhelmed for a good majority of the match because Mercedes was just completely going ham on her. Just moves and arm locks. She dug out her technical game on top of that. Does a train of 14 suplexes. That could not have felt good on either lady's bodies. Quite frankly, that must have been awful. Imagine 14 in a row, to deliver them and then to eat them, to flat back each of them. No. That wasn't great. That couldn't have been great, but it was cool. It was fantastic. I also think that the crowd stunk here. Maybe this is part of the exhaustion. Maybe this is part of the of the idea that we got too much of a good thing, too much good wrestling, and now it's the crowd is just completely out of it. But I thought this was a phenomenal match. I thought this was excellent. I think it is out of their series of 3 now between Statlander and Moné, I think this is this was the worst of the 3, but it's still very good. But it's still really, really good. And they really did try something different here in the match layout, in the match setup, where Mercedes just was focused on winning the title. And I like this idea that Mercedes Moné can't win the big one, where she can go off anywhere and win anyone's championship, right? But coming back to AEW, where the best wrestle, she can't get the Women's World Championship because she always falls short. She's going to win it eventually. I think she's going to drop, the belt collector gimmick before she does. But this has to eat at her. This is something that has to be a pain point. This has to be something that makes her sore, that makes her upset when people bring it up. This is So we can have this long-term story, and whoever she ends up winning it off of, it's going to be a true to form victory for Mercedes. That has to be the story. Is the third time the charm for Mercedes to finally win the AEW Women's World Championship? And it adds a little prestige to this title too, right? It adds to the idea that again, that Mercedes is winning all of these secondary belts, I guess, but AEW's top belt has such great competitive wrestlers around it, like the best wrestlers in the world, that even though Mercedes goes everywhere else and wins everyone else's title, coming back to AEW, she just can't do it because this is where the best wrestle. This is where the best wrestlers are. And Mercedes just can't beat the champions here because they're that fucking good. They're better than all of these 13 other promotions that she has, that she's collected the belt from, I think it's smart. I'm still into the gimmick. I think it's good. And Mercedes is very good. And I think Statlander was very good here as well. If I'm going to be maybe of a downer here, I think Statlander should have, I think she should have gotten a bigger, match here. She should have rose to the occasion big time here. I'm trying to formulate exactly what I'm trying to say here. She should have had like the natural progression of their series and then have like this explosive, mind-blowing match instead of what they ended up giving, which is the least interesting of the three matches that they had. She should have had that bigger match here because she is the champion, but it was still good. I enjoyed it. Give it a 4 stars, right? Then we have the backstage segment between Okada, Takeshita, Hechicero, and Don Callis, who basically, they're all upset to have lost, but basically saying that Okada's in the Continental Classic, and Takeshita's like, oh yeah? Well, I'm going to be in the Continental Classic too. And then Kyle Fletcher comes in and he's pissed off that no one had his back in his match for the TNT title. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to be in the Continental Classic as well. So that's very interesting. That's a field I can get behind. As long as we don't go a goofy route where we're going to get a 3-way in the finals, the finals really do need to be Okada and Takeshita. That's your blow off. Anything else is stupid. I'm just going to call it what it is. Anything else is stupid. That's your main event. That's your main event of the Continental Classic. That should be your final match, your finals. So Takeshita and Okada have to be in separate blocks or leagues in this case. And then we have the main event. We already broke all of that down, and that is going to bring an end to this review of AEW Full Gear presented by DC. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good show. Had a rough start. I think the start to the show was really, really rough, but then they really got into a groove with some really great stuff and controversial decisions, I guess. But I'm going to tell you, trust me, I will always prefer a promotion that tries stuff out than to sit around and be complacent and give us the same thing over and over and over again. I'm willing to hear them out and see how this goes. And the Hangman loss will be a good or a bad thing only in retrospect. Once we see what they have planned and how it's executed, that will make or break this decision. I think it's too early to cast judgment exactly on what happened there. In an otherwise good AEW pay-per-view that could nonetheless benefit from being just a little shorter as well. So there you go. Those are my overall thoughts. Let's talk about the Continental Classic, the 2025 AEW Continental Classic. It's coming, it's happening, it's here. It's a brand new year for AEW's Round Robin annual tournament. It's the third edition. I was streaming on Monday, April, on November 24. 2025. I was streaming and we watched on stream live. We all reacted live to the Selection Monday show that happened, and we basically had our live reaction when all the participants were being announced and whatnot, and going over the rules and so on and so forth. So this is kind of a retread of my initial thoughts on the Continental Classic, but with a little more substance, right? Look, I've talked about it often on this podcast that, I'm not a big instant reaction / post-show guy anymore. Maybe at one time I was, but not anymore. I'm more like, I like to take a little time to digest, maybe sleep on some stuff, and then give my analysis. So the instant reaction that I had as it was happening, it was fine, I guess, but a little surface level. And now that I've been able to sleep a little on it, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to record a little something specifically for the podcast in regards to the Continental Classic, just to make sure that, just to dive a little deeper, make sure that my thoughts are all coherent and that I provide some kind of analysis, right? More than, hey, this is cool. Hey, this is cool. A few extra thoughts, do a little bit of research, you look at some things over, what a professional would do. I mean, this is the kind of quality you expect from Warren Hayes. Am I right? Warren, we don't expect any quality from you. Oh, okay. That being said, the Continental Classic was revealed, I guess, last week on Dynamite. It wasn't. Look, this is my pet peeve with the Continental Classic, is that AEW doesn't promote it enough. I don't think they do a good job making it feel significant or important for fans, getting them hyped, getting really excited for the tournament. And we've talked about it oftentimes on stream. And on the podcast and on the AEW Dynamite reviews, I talk about it a lot, where the promotional cycle in U.S. wrestling is always centered around a pay-per-view event, and in the meantime, there not only was Tony Khan trying to sell people to on purchasing tickets and pay-per-views for Full Gear 2025. They were also hyping up Blood and Guts. So, were they in a position to really go hard and start promoting the Continental Classic throughout all of that? Maybe not. Maybe this is the business model where you just have to, you don't want to sell things further than your next pay-per-view, because you don't want people to be buying into the next thing. You want them to buy the immediate thing and then move on to the next thing. Like, that's essentially how it goes, right? But I can't help but feel like, nonetheless, even though our cycle, the pay-per-view cycles and the way things are promoted in North America and the United States is different than in Japan, where the G1 is like, the field is announced weeks before everything starts, and then there's all the build-up, and it's a different scenario because of the tours and whatnot. Like, I understand it's a whole different thing. And I don't think it's reasonable for AEW to do that kind of build, but they could have started announcing the Continental Classic is returning in 5 weeks and 4 weeks. You do a little countdown, you get a little video package put together with some highlights, of past Continental Classics, some great moves, some past participants, Eddie Kingston winning year one, and Kazuchika Okada winning last year, and then this all leads us into, then this would at least get people excited and talking about it, rather than, the first appearance of the Continental Classic hype being just like a lower third graphic during a match where commentary barely even speaks about it. Like, I think this tournament would benefit so much from some promotion, like some proper promotion, as opposed to, a YouTube show that happens 2 days before the start of the tournament. And this year it was 2 days. Last year it was on a Sunday. We had a Selection Sunday show. It was on the day after Full Gear. Now, for some reason, this year they decided to put it on Monday and give everyone even less time to get excited about it. And look, I can't hammer this home enough. The more time you would give people to think about and mull about the Continental Classic, the better it would be for AEW, because then you sort of establish that AEW is taking over the promotional cycle here. The news cycle is the word I was looking for. They take over the news cycle because now you've got, dopey creators like myself who are going to have prediction shows. We're going to have guests on, and we're going to break stuff down. We're going to start off some pick'ems. Like everyone's going to do this, and everyone's going to be putting some effort into it. Everyone's going to be talking about it. It's free publicity. I don't know why AEW is shy about doing that. Like we're blitzing. We're blitzing over 2 days to try and get our shit out, and I think it would be just beneficial for them. Like never mind throwing us a bone. That's not even the question. Never mind just throwing us content creators a bone, especially, in the past few days where the news cycle is very, very light. We could definitely benefit from having something to sink our teeth into, like the Continental Classic. Never mind throwing us a bone for that. It's just good promotion for you, AEW. It's just like it gets the hype train going, and you might, take over some SEO, etc., etc. Okay, you can all figure out the basics here. It's quite all right. I mean, it's a pipe dream at this point. Like it's a pipe. It has to be a pipe dream. And I know Tony Khan said, well, I want to wait till Full Gear is done so I can get a full grasp of who's available, right? Who's going to be injured? I don't want to announce people who are then going to be injured. And I'm like, why not? Who cares? Who cares? Like, it's a tournament. Like, I can understand that maybe there are some people you don't want to announce ahead of time because it might spoil the finishes of some stuff happening at the pay-per-view, right? Maybe. But the injury thing, I don't buy. Like, who cares? You announce your field. And look, this is the situation here, right? We heard the reports that Kyle O'Reilly was supposed to be in the Continental Classic, right? He's injured. He's been sent to hospital. He's not being cleared to participate in the tournament. So what do? They replaced him with, in all intents and purposes, it's been Roderick Strong who stepped in to replace Kyle O'Reilly. And I'm like, okay, like, it wasn't nothing was announced, but this is what's being reported. Now, let's say if the fields had been announced and Kyle O'Reilly had to step away because he was injured and they replaced it with Roderick Strong. Who fucking cares? Like, who cares? It's a tournament. Of course, there's going to be injuries and unfortunate stuff that's going to happen, and you're going to have to call in some alternates. You're going to have to do some substitutions or just have straight up like forfeits. Whatever it is you want to do. Like, it doesn't matter. When the tournament hasn't started yet, it has so little implication. Like, it doesn't matter. And your job then is to make it work. That's what your creative is for. The G1 deals with this practically every year. They dealt with it again this year with Gabe Kidd being knocked out after his first match. So what did they do? Well, they hung on to hope that he would be cleared, but he wasn't cleared, and they just forfeited all of his matches. And it sucks, but it's a tournament. And sometimes I wonder, like, is it because Tony is maybe he's a little too much on Twitter, and he's afraid of all of the negative responses that are all going to come from bot farms anyway. Right? It's all going to come from bots. We know it now. We've seen it with Twitter revealing like the locations of users, right? We've all seen that most of these accounts are all fucking bullshit. It's all bullshit. They all come from, they're all from the Eastern Bloc or like Bangladesh or India. These are bot farms. They're all bot farms regardless, continuing to prove that Twitter is a fucking cesspool. Who cares, Tony Khan? Who cares about what Twitter randos who might not even be real believe or feel? It's a tournament, and tournaments are the purest expression of sports-based presentation in pro wrestling. Well, there's nothing more sports-based presentation than a tournament competitor being knocked out of the tournament because they got hurt. Am I the only one who has an issue with that kind of situation? Of course, it's unfortunate if someone gets knocked out. Like you look at the leagues that we have right now. Let's say Jon Moxley gets knocked out. Well, that fucking sucks, because for sure, like, he was factored in big time to. He was absolutely factored into the finish of the. He had an important role to play, is what I'm trying to say, in the Continental Classic this year. He most likely does. And if he gets knocked out because of injury, yeah, it sucks. But then you revise your stories. Don't you have creative people who are paid full-time salaries? Like this, I don't know. Like all of the counter arguments, all of the yeah buts can all be easily countered by yeah but, no yeah but. Like, whether it's yeah, but what if there's injuries? Yeah, but what if Tony Khan doesn't want to sell this before Full Gear? There's still stuff you can do. And you have people at your disposition. You have teams working on this shit with you, Tony. Jesus fucking Christ. It doesn't matter. Please, I'm begging you. This is my third year begging. Give us fields before like 3 days before the start. Just give us the feels ahead of time. Start drip feeding participants. Just do something. Do something to get us excited. Because what's frustrating is that when this field this year was revealed, I was like, hot damn. Like, this is exciting shit, and I wish I had more opportunities to talk about it and get hype about it, and then hype my community about it. Just get everyone excited about it, right? And go on Blue Sky and argue with people. Like, who cares as to whether or not someone is upset because their favorite wasn't in the C2? Like, it doesn't matter. That's just noise. It doesn't matter. Focus on what the C2 this year is so incredibly solid. Like, this should have been the year where Tony Khan goes in full confidence. He goes, yeah, fuck yeah, I got this. This year, it rocks. It's the sicko mode C2. Y'all are horny for this and you don't even know it yet. So I'm gonna do promotion weeks ahead of time. And you're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna be into it. This was the year to do it. Because it's practically flawless. I have, anyway, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but the point that I'm making here is next year, for Pete's sake, please try to promote it way ahead of time, more so than a lower third on Dynamite that is barely referenced, and then a selection show 2 days before the opening salvo. Like, I don't necessarily want you to do the whole G1 shebang with the press conference. I don't like. If you want to, that'd be great. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just asking you to give it some promotion. Continental Classic starts on November 26, 2025 on AEW Dynamite. It is the same rules as past occurrences. 20-minute match time limits. Each winner gets 3 points for a victory, 0 points in defeat, and 1 point in the case of a tie, or a draw, I should say, not a tie, but a draw. There are no seconds, no managers, no one who accompanies to ringside. Everyone is cleared from ringside, and interference is strictly forbidden, lest that person gets banned from AEW. This could be the rule for all matches in All Elite Wrestling, but that's a discussion for another time. And like I said, it's going to start this week on Dynamite and Collision. So both shows are going to have some Continental Classic matches. And just like last year, the semifinals and the finals will happen at World's End. And who participates in the semifinals, you ask? Well, it's the league winners face the opposite league's runner-ups. So exactly the same template as we got last year. So look, let's go right in and start talking about the leagues here that again were revealed yesterday. Yesterday being Monday, as I'm recording this on the 24th. So for those of you with the benefit of video, you have them on screen. The Gold League will be made up of Darby Allin, Pac, Kevin Knight, Speedball, Mike Bailey, Kyle Fletcher, and Kazuchika Okada, who of course is the defending Continental Classic champion. And over in the Blue League, we are going to have Konosuke Takeshita, Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, and Mascara Dorada, which got a big rousing applause from yours truly. I was very, very stoked to see this. This is something that I can't say that AEW doesn't listen to me, because I had been asking that outsiders join in the fun here for the C2. Because look, I know Tony Khan and AEW, they like to say that they like to call it I think they were calling it like the prestigious last year, the prestigious Continental Classic and whatnot. I'm like, all right, pump the brakes here, folks. If you want it to be prestigious, if you want it to have like sheen and international interest, well, you sort of have to get people who don't go here to join your tournament and take part in it. And having Mascara Dorada in here, or as the good folks at ESPN call him, Mascara Dorada 2.0, having him here in this situation does add a little extra flair. Of course, he has wrestled quite a few times now in the TK verse. Notably, a great performance at the previous pay-per-view Wrestle Dream against Okada and Takeshita. So a familiar face, but again, like a guy who is not necessarily tied to AEW as specifically as others. But I'm excited that he's in the tournament. That got a big cheer out of me. So some quick thoughts here. Of course, the Gold League is sick. It's absolutely sick. I don't know who looks at this and goes, mid. No. Like the Gold League is absolutely phenomenal, kick-ass, great. It is without a doubt the most compelling league this year between the two. Not that the Blue League stinks. It's really just on another level when you got Okada, Fletcher, you got Pac in here, you've got Bailey in here, you've got Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight is a tremendous addition to the tournament this year, because I'm really happy for him. This is going to be a platform for him to shine, to really, really get himself over even more than he is, because people love the jet speed. But now this is going to be like a spot for Kevin Knight to really flex his singles muscle. Speedball has, he has opportunities to wrestle outside of jet speed and whatnot. And I feel like most AEW viewers are more familiar with Speedball as a singles competitor, maybe not Kevin Knight as much. And look, it's all up to him at this point, right? And it's going to be tremendous. And then of course you got Darby Allin in here, who is going to be as Darby Allin as he can in these environments. He was in the tournament last year. This is his second tournament, his second C2, and I thought he had a really entertaining tournament last year as well. So I thought he was very good. There's so much potential here. It is preposterous. Over on the blue side, well, you've got some heavy hitters here. Between Takeshita, Moxley, Castagnoli, and Roderick Strong, you've got guys here who are just ready to completely and utterly lay into each other. I'm extremely excited to see Konosuke Takeshita and Jon Moxley go at it now that they're on particularly Takeshita is on a different level to his career as opposed to other opportunities maybe that they had where they've had singles encounters. Castagnoli in this type of environment is going to be great. You know, he's going to throw. Yeah, I don't have an issue with Claudio Castagnoli throwing Orange Cassidy around. I know we saw these two go at it very, very recently, as recently as the Blood and Guts match, and I don't have a problem with seeing all of this again. I really don't have a problem with it. And of course, I think the big attraction here is that Mascara Dorada, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be having first-time matches with everyone in this tournament. So this is really excellent. And I mean singles matches, right? So first-time matches against pretty much everyone in the tournament in his league. I think that's very exciting. I'm stoked to see where this is going to go. You know, and hopefully he'll have taken the time to get used to the North American ropes so that he doesn't have any other issues like he did against Okada last week, because that was kind of a shame. Are there any first-time matches over in the Gold League? Yes, in fact, most of them involve Darby Allin. Darby Allin will be having first-time matches against Mike Bailey, against Kyle Fletcher, against Kazuchika Okada, and will also be having his first-time match against Kevin Knight. And Kevin Knight will also be having multiple first-time matches, as well as along with Darby Allin, he'll be having first-time matches against Pac and Kyle Fletcher. So this is all really, really interesting. Like there's some good stuff, new stuff to look forward to in both leagues. You know what I like the most about this year's C2? This is what I like the most, folks. Are you ready for this? There are no skips. There are no matches to skip. Everything has the potential to be good to great to excellent. I'm so excited. Like I'm sitting there and I'm rubbing my hands and I'm like it's okay to have a high floor for all of these matches. The only thing that could step in the way is, TV time, having to compose with that, and maybe a guy like Mascara Dorada who isn't used to that type of pacing might be a little lost in it and might not deliver as highly as he usually can. I think this is going to, I think that every match here is worth watching. And like I said, each one of Dorada's matches is a first-time match. So if only for that's a great selling point, at least for me, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm telling everyone how satisfied I am with the outcome here, with how everything is put together, and how much I enjoy the field. But is there anyone that I'm surprised that isn't in the tournament? And I would say yes. There are two people who I'm a little surprised that are not in the tournament. The first one, Bandito. I really thought that by losing the titles at Full Gear to FTR, Brodito, I mean, I really thought that this was going to just clear up the schedule so that Bandito could jump into the Continental Classic and compete through it. Plus, look, he's a fan favorite. AEW fans love Bandito, and he would have been a great addition. He would have been a fantastic addition. Which leads me to believe that Brodito, that there are plans right now for Brodito that are still bubbling, that we still got something here going. So I think that explains it. But I'll be honest, if Brodito is not cycled into any type of feud, maybe a rematch with FTR or whatever, if they're not in an active feud, it's going to be really strange to me that Bandito was not added to the tournament. Who would I taken out? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. I don't know who I would have taken out. And the other person that I thought was going to be in it was Ace Austin. And the other person that I'm surprised isn't in the tournament is Ace Austin. I really thought that this would have been a really great opportunity to capitalize off the intrigue that a lot of AEW fans have after seeing him in AEW and seeing how fantastic, like his first match, how great that was and how much positive buzz that created for him. I thought that they would have given him the floor here to just go out, have great matches, and be an easy pin eater. He'd be a great losing post for any of the two leagues. It'd be just, yeah, he's in here and he's just going to rack up the L's, and that's fine. But in the meantime, have some really exciting matches and sort of try and build him a little more. I thought he would have been a perfect addition to the tournament. Now, you probably have your favorites out there. You're like, I would have liked to have seen so-and-so. I would have liked to have seen, I don't know, Serpentico in here. And that's fair. And, you can drop some names in the comments and let's have some discussion who you thought should have been in the tournament. Of course, it's unfortunate for Kyle O'Reilly if the reports are indeed true, but we get Roderick Strong, and Roderick Strong is going to just go around and he's going to smack the shit out of people. And Kensuke Takeshita is going to do that too. And Jon Moxley is going to do that too. And Claudio is going to do that too. There's really a lot to love. There's really, really a lot to love in both leagues. Now, how do I see this going? That's an interesting point here. An interesting transition to try and see, like, well, okay, well, Warren, do you have the pulse? Let's see how is your finger on the pulse here. Can you pick the winner and how things are going to shake out? Look, I am terrible. As much as I love the round robin tournaments, I am absolute dog shit when it comes to predicting how these things are going to go. Just check my G1 Climax pick'em records over at sportofprowrestling.com. You'll see how embarrassing it is. But take this with a grain of salt. Look, I think that guys like Kevin Knight, Mascara Dorada, they're going to be the pin eaters. They're mostly there to take some L's. Maybe even Roderick Strong and probably Mike Bailey as well. Like, I wouldn't, if I'm betting, and I'm not, and please, this is not financial information, for financial advice, that I'm giving you. This is for entertainment purposes only. I would not be betting any money on any of those four guys, right? Any at all. I'd even throw Orange Cassidy in here when it comes to the Blue League, because I think the Blue League is really going to, look, if I'm booking this, I'm having Kensuke Takeshita run ragged over the entire division. Like he's the guy who's going to demolish everyone in the division. I'd give him a perfect record, quite frankly. I'd have him go in perfect record. And Moxley and Claudio are probably going to have big parts to play as well within towards the finals of this tournament. And of course, there's the looming story that the Death Riders are going to kick Jon Moxley out of the group. A story, basically a fan story, right? A fan angle that has caught a lot of momentum, and a lot of people are expecting now to see, where I myself am, I think it would be interesting to see. I think it's interesting to see what they do with it. I'm not necessarily banking on it to happen, but there's a lot of people who are. There's a lot of people who are like, man, I can't believe that the Death Riders didn't turn on Mox at Blood and Guts. Man, I can't believe that the Death Riders didn't turn on Mox at Full Gear. I'm like, maybe because they won't. Because this is, it's still headcanon, right? And I know there's people are taking pictures of, the side eyes that the other Death Riders are giving Mox, and I even mentioned, after Blood and Guts, did you notice that Daniel Garcia stepped over Mox's prone body and was shaking his head? I'm like, okay, maybe there is something to this, right? Maybe not. But I would assume that the Continental Classic could be a backdrop to this happening, especially if Mox and Claudio especially with Mox and Claudio being in the same block, right? But yeah, ultimately, I'm thinking Konosuke Takeshita is going to be the winner of Blue League, and Kazuchika Okada is going to be the winner of Gold League. They have been building, they being AEW, have been building this story for so long that these two guys don't get along, that they're not into each other, that they're, two just big egos, big alphas that are, this town ain't big enough for the two of us kind of thing. This has to lead to them confronting each other and having a clash at the Continental Classic finals at World's End. I don't see it happening. I don't see this finish being anything else than these two guys just going after each other because egos and having a tremendous fight. Like that's what I'm expecting to see out of this, out of the finals here. Now, the question that I was asking, that I was wondering, thinking to myself as we were watching the Selection Monday show, was, is there a way for, let's say, Moxley and Pac to get after to fight each other in the semifinals? And the answer is no, because unless either Takeshita or Okada don't finish at the top of the block, which you could do, right? Like, there's no way for Mox and Pac to fight each other in the semis without the finals not being Okada and Takeshita. So that's the only way. It's the only way. Either Mox and Pac meet each other in the semis, and that means Okada and Takeshita meet each other in the semis, and then the finals are the winners. And the finals is the winner of Mox Pac versus the winner of Okada Takeshita, and that doesn't seem as compelling and a little obtuse in regards to the storytelling that they've been trying to build. You'd blow off two big stories in semifinals of the tournament, and that's a little weird. Whereas if you're going to blow off a big time story, it might as well be Okada and Takeshita. This has been building for months and months and months, and it is just the most logical way to wrap all of it up within the tournament, where these two guys are trying to prove that they're better than the other, with Okada just really being, a really shit, nasty, disrespectful heel, and Takeshita being just like, yeah, you know what? I just want to wrestle. I want to prove I'm the best, especially over this guy, because he gets on my nerves. Not friendly competition. They don't like each other. If this isn't the finals of the tournament, this whole storytelling, this whole story they've been telling, just doesn't have any logic to it. This is how the finish to this is Okada and Bayley. And if that's what we're going to do, well, there's no way for Mox and Pac to fight each other within the tournament. Now, maybe this will all go down with Claudio, right? Maybe this is how it will all come together within the Blue League, with Moxley and Claudio, ushering in the end of the Death Riders this way. But again, like, I think it's not. I was trying to go roundabout, say this in a very roundabout way, but I'm just going to go straight for it. I don't think that this Continental Classic is going to be the theater of the breakup of the Death Riders. I think it's going to sow some major seeds, but I don't think this is going to be the theater of the breakup. Not at least within the matches. Maybe in a post-match angle and something else happening. Maybe. But I have there is no indication to me. It doesn't make sense, in fact, when you look at it, to be like, why would we break up the Death Riders here in this circumstance, unless Claudio beats Mox and then the Death Riders come out to beat up Mox. But then it has to be towards the end of the tournament. And you see, if we had the full schedule and we saw who's fighting who on what date and where, and let's say on the last night of Blue League action, we have Claudio Castagnoli versus Jon Moxley, then I'll be singing another tune. Then I'll be like, hey, you know what? Since it's the last night of action, this might be the place where the Death Riders finally turn on Mox in a post-match angle type of situation. But as it stands right now, I really don't see it. I don't know. Do you? I don't see a path to this outside of, let's say, Castagnoli and Mox really fighting on the last night. Because if it's midway through the tournament that their match happens, like, that's not going to be a good impetus. We're not going to go through the rest of the tournament with unaffiliated Jon Moxley, right? That would be counterproductive and would suck away all the drama of the situation, right? Because you do the big turn. If you do the big turn, then the next week you want a good follow-up. But you won't be able to do a follow-up next week because we're still in the Continental Classic and you're not supposed to have any interference or seconds or posses or groups accompanying you or whatnot. So I don't know. I'm not feeling like it's going to be, I don't think this is going to be necessarily where the Death Riders are going to turn on Mox versus Claudio, with the caveat that if Mox versus Claudio happens on the last night of Blue League action, then we might have something important that's going to happen. Otherwise, on the blue team, I talk about the pin eaters and whatnot. Yeah, look, Mascara Dorada, Orange Cassidy, even Roderick Strong to a degree. I think these are the guys that are going to be taking most of the L's. I think Mascara Dorada is going to take most of the L's. Orange Cassidy is not being pushed right now, so he's definitely going to take some L's. Roderick Strong he'll probably get a nice, a winning record on the way out. You know what I mean? He'll probably get a nice winning record walking out of here, but not a big significant winning record, one that would keep him in contention to move forward. So yeah. So those are my overall thoughts right now as we are about to hop on to the 2025 edition of the Continental Classic. Of course, I will be covering it on stream on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. And of course, on the Mr. Warren Hayes show proper. So it's tournament season, baby. Some great participants, 2 exciting leagues. This has the potential to be the best C2 edition so far. Get into it. Get into it. Because this was all brought up very recently, and we're getting a denouement to all of this. AEW, this is off of WrestleNomics. Our boy Brandon Thurston. Shout out Brandon. How you doing? AEW dropped bid to trademark Shockwave, ending dispute with NWA. AEW abandoned its attempt to trademark the name AEW Shockwave after the NWA challenged it more than a year ago. AEW filed to give up the name on November 13, according to records filed with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office that were reviewed by WrestleNomics. AEW's trademark application was originally filed on September 6. On September 6, 2024. AEW's trademark application was originally filed on September 6, 2024, leading to a dispute with the NWA, which had previously used the Shockwave name for its events. The 2 companies had been litigating the matter over the summer. AEW filed for abandonment a week and a half ago because AEW withdrew the application without the NWA's direct written consent. The Trademark Trial and Appeal Board entered judgment, which is standard procedure. The board entered a judgment on November 17 with prejudice, meaning AEW can pursue the trademark again in the future, effectively closing the case. The timing coincides with Khan's recent comments that he, quote, had a really nice talk, unquote, with Billy Corgan, the Smashing Pumpkins band leader behind the NWA. I'm probably not going to use it, the concept of the Shockwave name. in an interview with Ariel Helwani last Tuesday, November 18, one day after the judgment on the trademark was entered. He didn't mention the application had just been withdrawn and closed. Khan said he didn't know when he filed for the trademark and that the name had been used before by the NWA. He said that he told Corgan, quote, "If that's something you want to do, use the Shockwave name, and you did it first, then you can do that," unquote. The resolution of the dispute also follows AEW's introduction of its new national title earlier this month, which publicly raised the ire of some NWA wrestlers. AEW's rollout of the title seemed to assume the title lineage was connected with the NWA's version of the national title, which is active and held by NWA wrestler Mike Mondo. One NWA wrestler suggested AEW's rollout of its own national title was retaliatory over the Shockwave dispute. That was Idol, not Austin Idol. Brian Idol, I want to say. In the Helwani interview, Khan said he also spoke with Corgan about the national title. "I had a great talk with him about that," he said. Lots of things were great in that interview. Neither AEW nor the NWA responded to our inquiries, which included questions about whether there were any settlement discussions that led to AEW abandoning the trademark. So there you go. There's nothing else to report here, but it's funny because all of this came back to light. Because I remember when the NWA challenged the Shockwave thing, right? And it all resurfaced like 2 weeks ago, over the national title bullshit, when the NWA wrestlers, like it was pointed out in the article here, when the NWA wrestlers got really, really upset that the national titles lineage, that it was implied that the national titles lineage would include the NWA lineage, when in fact it will be two completely different belts, two completely different championships. And then, yeah, it's like, I can't remember it. Like it's not Mike Mondo, but I think it's Brian Idol, who really took offense to this and completely went off on Twitter, had somewhat of a crash out, which was fantastic, and added in there, it's like isn't this all interesting that this is happening while we're in court over the Shockwave trademark, right? And people are like, in court? This is in court? Why has this not come forward? And so on and so forth. So it turns out, after reading all of this, that he had misspoken, right? That it wasn't in court. Maybe that was his understanding, being, a lowly pro wrestler in the totem pole and probably not privy to all of the office finagling that happens, right? He probably saw all of this and was like, hey, you know what? Yeah, they're in court. Well, it's not really in court. There's nothing in court that's happening. It's just, the trademark office, whatever it's called, the trademark trial and appeal board, that this ended up being covered by, right? So I can absolutely see Tony Khan calling up Billy Corgan and saying, brother, because he said he did call about the NWA national title lineage thing. It's like, I'm sorry for all of that. And maybe, look, again, we're just speculating. Maybe Billy Corgan was like, well, thank you for the apology regarding the national title and its lineage. I appreciate that. Thank you. But, the Shockwave trademark thing, do you think we could move away from that? And maybe it's Tony that offered that as an olive branch. It could go either way. Either Billy Corgan said, yeah, you know what? I'll forgive you and it'll be water under the bridge if you let go of the Shockwave trademark that you're applying for. Or Tony Khan outright said, look, as a token of my goodwill here, in regards to everything that happened with the national title stuff and how messy that got, I will relinquish my request for Shockwave. I could see both things happening in this circumstance. It kind of makes me, it kind of makes me laugh to think that it might be Billy Corgan who kind of like requested that as a make do, like, yeah, oh yeah, you're apologetic and why not prove it? Prove it, pal. So yeah, and it's done. The AEW cannot pursue this trademark in the future as well. And yeah, I mean, look, the Shockwave name was kind of up in the air, it's like we knew it was there. We knew there was the trademark application, but whatever it was supposed to be, which a lot of people thought was the rumored show on Fox, that's what a lot of folks were assuming. We were kind of thinking maybe that, we were kind of thinking that maybe there was something still happening there, but clearly there isn't. Like, I think we agree, don't we agree, Chad, on this one, that this kind of nails the coffin on whatever deal AEW was exploring with Fox, if that was ever really a thing. Because, outside of reports and rumors, I don't think there was anything really concrete. They were probably just in, initial talks, calling up, like sending out emails and sending out feelers and having, off the record meetings with people and stuff. There was probably nothing really official happening, just testing out some waters. And Tony Khan was like, well, we're going to lock down the Shockwave one. But I think that's fair to say. Then again, look, I'm contradicting myself right here. About a week ago or whatever, 10 days ago, AEW had a bunch of other trademarks registered. So any one of those could still be the name of a new TV show that may or may not be on Fox. But I kind of feel like at this point, we would have heard something. We probably would have heard something if there was a move, if there was something being developed for Fox. I think we would have heard about something right now at this point. But ultimately, you know what my main takeaway from all this story is? From everything that happened here, you know what my main takeaway is? I'll tell you what it is. My main takeaway here is that Tony Khan has no fucking clue what's going on in the National Wrestling Alliance these days. That's been his argument for both the national title nonsense and the Shockwave trademark application. Oh, I didn't know there was a national title still active in NWA. I'm very sorry. Oh, I didn't know you used to run an event called Shockwave. I am very sorry. Like, this is ultimately my takeaway. Tony Khan has no clue what's going on in the NWA. He probably doesn't even know who's hired. He probably doesn't even know who the world champion is now, because they finally announced that they finally broadcast the match where the Thrillbilly, what's his name, Cyrus, but he finally won the championship off of Tom Latimer. And that match was like recorded this summer. Like he's been NWA world champion, I think, since August. And they were kayfabing the whole thing until now, which is insane. Insane shit. They shot their Halloween special, right? And there's going to be stuff broadcast from their Halloween special like in February next year. Like it's an insane company when it comes to this kind of stuff. So there you go. Like ultimately that's my takeaway here. But you know, it's always nice to hear that we have some resolution on some outstanding issues. Congratulations to all the parties involved. And And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you all very much for listening to the very end here. And if you're still here, I don't know. I think that means that you're going to leave a like on the video. I think that means that you're going to subscribe if you're still here, because you obviously like me. You like me a lot and you want more of me. How about a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts? Or how about a 5-star rating on Spotify? Look, in exchange, I will tell you that I will be back Thursday with the AEW Dynamite review, even though it's Thanksgiving. In the United States of America, we Canadians never stop. So I'll be punching out an AEW Dynamite review just for you to share with your family, and I'll probably hop on stream as well. So once you're ready to ditch your family, then you can come join me on stream and we'll have a nice little time. And in the meantime, though, I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you all very much for listening. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me, and I will see you next time.